But look how quickly things go down the moment you lose access to all the conveniences that we assume they're just always going to have access to. Let me ask you a question. Do you think we'll be any different when our economic day of reckoning comes? Hashtag love wins. Because it's coming. Everything Greece has done, everything we're doing, we have seen it play out before. The parallels are striking. In the 1920s, Germany's Weimar Republic, it rose in the aftermath of World War I and suffered from a horrible economy. Most of it stemmed from the government's decision to attempt to pay its deep foreign debts inflicted by progressive Woodrow Wilson on Germany. They decided they were going to print the money and just give the rest of the world inflated money because they didn't have any money, so they just printed it. Sound familiar? This caused hyperinflation, which crippled the economy, put it out. Unemployment, food, and energy shortages were everywhere, and the people were desperate. And it opened the door for extremist views to take root. This is how the Nazi Party became popular. Golden Dawn in Greece is doing the same thing all over again. And the same thing will happen here if we don't wake up. We're making the same mistakes. In the Weimar Republic, the government decided to enact gun registration and then allowed for governments to confiscate the firearms if needed for public safety. When Hitler eventually seized power, he used all of the registration of the firearms to disarm the political opponents and the Jews. The Jews weren't allowed to own guns and got 20 years in labor camps if they were caught with one. Weimar tried to print their way out of debt. So did Greece. So are we. Weimar restricted guns, so have we. Nazis used suffering to gain power. Extremists did the same in Greece, and we're beginning to do it here as well. And we'll dismiss them. Oh, it'll never happen here. In Weimar, they legalized drugs and abandoned morals to become hypersexualized, depicted in movies like Cabaret. So what have we done? We legalized drugs. And I don't think I have to spend any time convincing anyone that the ship has sailed on valuing morality. Then they had an assassination attempt on their leader, the president of Germany. The then chancellor, like our Speaker of the House broke the Constitution, broke all the laws, and went out and hunted down these supposed killers. It was called the Night of Long Knives. This leader of their country broke every single law, broke the Constitution blatantly, and killed all of his enemies. The next morning, he got on radio, and he admitted it. He came clean. He said, with hat in hand, in a long speech to the Nazi-controlled Reichstag in Parliament, that 74 people had been shot. And I did this because I was trying to save the Republic, he said, quote, "If anyone reproaches me and asks why I didn't resort to the regular courts of justice, then all I can say is this: in this hour I was responsible for the fate of the German people, and I became the supreme judge of the German people." It was no secret that at this time the revolution would have to be bloody. When we spoke of it, we called it the Night of Long Knives. Everyone must know, all future time, that if he raises his hand to strike the state, then certain death is his lot. Guess what happened? This was the turning point. When Hitler broke the Constitution and broke the law, if the German people would have stood up, the legitimate German president would have kicked him out. But the German people stood up and applauded. The government forgave him. And when they did, the president wanted to elevate him to a new office because he was going to retire. But Hitler, again with hat in hand, said, "Oh my, I could never replace him as president. That's too much power for me. That's too lofty of a title. I'll take a new lowly office. Let's just call me the Führer." He changed history. He changed the course of that country and the world. He based everything in his country on a new pseudoscience. Sound familiar? He nationalized and socialized their new economy. He imaged himself as a Christian. Indeed, he was not a Christian, even though he claimed to be one. When he was running, boy, oh boy, did he talk about Christian values. But in the end, he became an antichrist himself. It was just a few years into him being the Führer that he told churches what they could and couldn't do. Sound familiar? He replaced all the crucifixes in the churches with a picture of himself that was placed on the altar. And he said, quote, "The only religion in Germany is that of the Führer." A good friend of mine, Eric Metaxas, wrote a fantastic book that's soon going to be a movie. He wrote a friend of mine this weekend, and he said, this is the time of Bonhoeffer. We are living this history again. Bonhoeffer couldn't save the German people from themselves, but there weren't a lot of people on board with him. We cannot make the mistakes of the past. Our government is already making them. We as a people must begin to gather together and stand for eternal principles in our own lives. No matter what our faith or our doctrines, we must come together. Even though the world has been turned upside down, the phrase that did it is actually true. And if it is properly interpreted, it is the secret. It's love wins. And it has nothing to do with who you sleep with. Back in a minute.